Welcome everybody to the Wake Up Call channel. Obviously, I have been a major proponent against self-driving vehicles. Obviously, I am against electric vehicles. I know people out there feel like they should be able to make a choice if they want to drive one or the other, and they have every right to. However, autonomous vehicles should be illegal, and every single civilian should have a say in this. But we don't, because we live in an American corporation. And without our say, without us being allowed to determine whether a company is allowed to drive and put a vehicle on the road with no human being behind the wheel, they're given carte blanche, while the rest of us have zero say. And that's exactly what is wrong with the world. And that is why a story like this is important to share with people. Because a driverless vehicle was pulled over by the police. Why was it pulled over by the police? Because it's a driverless vehicle that was not obeying the law, because it didn't know how to get around a detour. So in other words, you could be walking in the road, your children could be crossing the street, and they could get killed by a driverless vehicle. And then what? Who are we going to hold accountable? Waymo, the company responsible for this driverless vehicle? Bill Gates and these psychopaths who are trying to push these controlled driverless electric vehicles onto all of us? Who will be held responsible? The answer is no one. And of course, they'll tell you a story like this. Well, it's not that big of a deal, because if a human being is in the road, these vehicles are all trained to stop. Couldn't be further from the truth. Get a load of this, and somebody tell me, after seeing a story like this, how civilians are not asking the question, who gave permission to these corporations to put cars on the roads with the rest of us with no human beings behind the wheel?
31 Adam for as well?
No, can you show me out at 7th Ave and Osborne? I got a unmanned vehicle that was kind of taken off from me. It's a Waymo car.
It's not every day you see a Phoenix police officer pulling over a driverless car.
Hi!
But that's what happened June 19th after the officer observed a Waymo going haywire in traffic.
I couldn't help but come over, just out of morbid curiosity.
Yeah.
I thought maybe there's a passenger or something.
No, like, you know the construction here?
Yeah.
It was eastbound in the westbound lanes.
Oh!
Which is real bad. Yeah. And then, so I light it up, and then it takes off through the intersection.
While most Waymo cars can be seen throughout the city driving safely and behaving civilly, erratic driving is not completely out of the question for the artificial intelligence.
It was making a right onto Washington. Almost hit me. I had to swerve into the fast lane.
Phil Briggs says Tuesday he nearly got sideswiped by a Waymo on a mission with no regard for the car surrounding it.
My son saw an accident. We've seen him dead in the water in the middle of the intersection. So it's just, I don't see any good from it at all.
I reached out to Waymo to find out more about the potential for errors in their cars. Waymo sent me a statement, and they said Waymos are much better drivers than humans and 3.5 times more likely to avoid injury-causing crashes.
So your car here drove into oncoming lanes of traffic.
In the case last month, Waymo says the construction signage on 7th and Osborne was inconsistent, and because the officer blocked the car, it had to impede oncoming traffic. But the whole ordeal only lasted 1 minute.
If you or I are driving like that and we get pulled over, we get a ticket. So somebody needs to be held accountable.
Phoenix police say they are able to cite Waymo, but it's not something they see or do often. Officers, though, are provided training to deal with robot-operated cars. Waymo cars are also able to detect an emergency vehicle and program to safely pull over on the side of the road.
Waymo also makes it very easy for law enforcement to simply press the help button on the inside of the car and get connected immediately to a 24/7 service member that will be able to talk them through moving the vehicle off the road, finding the insurance information, or whatever information that the officer needs for their investigation.
All right, officer. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Sorry
Good luck.
for the trouble, okay?
Yeah, don't worry about it. Take care. Yep.
So what will the argument be for one of the sheeple out there that wants to defend a driverless vehicle? Is it that, well, I heard technology is so perfect and doesn't make mistakes, right? That's what we hear about technology. That's what I've covered over the years, if you haven't paid attention, about how sports were beginning to question every single call in baseball, football. They were overblowing this stuff year after year after year for exactly what you're seeing now. People clamoring and begging the NFL and Major League Baseball to fire umpires and refs and bring in robots, right? Well, does it look like it's a perfect thing? when you have these vehicles out there not even obeying the law because it doesn't know how to formulate some type of a roadblock or some type of construction being done? And what about your children or your grandmother or yourself who could be walking in the road and then suddenly find themselves turned into a human pancake when they're flatlined and dead and nobody's held accountable for it? So the article out there says this is something you probably didn't consider. Self-driving Waymo cars can get pulled over by the police. In fact, it happened last month in Phoenix, as you guys saw, and it was caught by body cameras. It's not every day you see a Phoenix police officer pulling over a driverless car, but that's what's happened in June after the officer observed a Waymo going haywire in traffic, right? And I love how they talk about this, like, hey, it's not every day you see a driverless vehicle. Wow, let's watch this story and then go, ooh, how interesting, instead of saying, WTF, why are we allowing this? Who's giving them permission? It's the same thing I say about the 5G towers. Who's giving them permission to put this up on public roads? Nobody out there asks any questions, which is why it's so important to them to constantly keep you distracted and to put out as much propaganda as they can to make conspiracy theorists look like crazy, unstable people. When in reality, this Constitution doesn't exist anymore in this country, and the corporations are running and controlling everything, and the proof is all around us. This is proof right here that a company can put a car on the road without a human behind the wheel and it's going haywire in traffic. God forbid it hit somebody, rear-ended somebody, gave a kid whiplash, or killed somebody. Well, it didn't happen, right? So we don't have to worry about that yet. Yeah, we don't ask the people where they've given any input on this. They haven't. Just like none of us were allowed to give input on 5G. And anybody who questioned it, they said, oh, it's not dangerous. Oh, no, it's putting your head in a microwave dangerous. Well, of course, right? Well, what's the difference other than, whoa, you're going to tell me a microwave's a little bit hotter and the frequencies are a little bit higher? Oh, okay. Well, most people out there haven't held up an EMF reader up to any of these 5G towers to see what's emitting from it. Nor have they held one up to their own microwave, nor have they held one up to their Wi-Fi connector in their house, because they don't pay attention to what's going on. And if we don't start pushing back, they continue to just do these things without anybody saying anything about it other than saying, wow, that's neat, that's cool, a car that could drive itself. And of course, this will be marketed to you in the future as being safer than humans driving. Why? Well, they'll say there's more accidents because people are drunk driving, people are texting and driving, and they'll convince people in the future that this is what's needed and there'll be zero accidents, right? But for the time being, they can get away with putting stories like this out there and people don't go, how about we remove it from the road? That's all we need to see, haywire in traffic, right? But of course, big tech, as it continues in our society, goes above all laws. When they use these, these mottos with Trump and Biden being above the law, the only people who are above the law in this country, those are actors. The only real people above the law are these Satanists in Hollywood and the politicians, is big tech. Big tech doesn't have to obey by any human laws, any civil rights, any civil laws, anything that has to do with a human right. They don't have to obey by it because they're allowed to violate free speech. They're allowed to violate our safety by doing stuff like this or putting up 5G towers, and they tell us that it's AT&T and Verizon. It's our government doing it. It's our government working with the corporations. And we're the ones who should have say in this. These are public roads that these cars are driving on. Those 5G towers are on public roads, and they're hitting all of us every single time we drive down a highway somewhere. The article goes on to say, while most Waymo cars can be seen throughout the city driving safely and behaving civilly, erratic driving is not completely out of the question for artificial intelligence. Well, of course not. Of course not. But we'll take our chances, right? Right? We'll take our chances. Well, it could become erratic. Well, I know when it will become erratic when I'm in a city somewhere, or one of you guys who listen to this channel are in a city somewhere, and they know based on your social score that you read this or listen to that on the internet. Conveniently, the AI car is just going to run you over, and they're going to say, well, it's just a minor malfunction, minor glitch. It won't make the news, and nobody will think that they're using these things in any other way than to get people from one spot to the other. Right? Yeah, it's behaving civilly, isn't it? It's unbelievable. Phil Briggs was nearly sideswiped by the Waymo car in an unrelated incident. He said, quote, it was making a right onto Washington. It almost hit me. I had to swerve into the fast lane. My son saw an accident. We've seen them dead in the water in the middle of the intersection. I don't see any good from it at all. I agree with Phil Briggs. Everybody out there should agree. It's one thing to look at this stuff and say, wow, it's really interesting that they have the technology to create that. That's fine if you want to be amazed by it. If it gives you kicks at the end of the day, say, oh, that's really cool. I don't think any of this stuff is cool. In fact, I think there's nothing gayer at this point than technology and what we've seen come out of it. Okay, you want to look back at technology of how to, people making cars, even that, I'm starting to get to the point where I'm going, give me the horse and buggy at this point. Get me back to the Oregon Trail, really. Because the stuff I'm seeing just gets worse and worse and worse. And all the technology does, which people don't realize, is gives the government more control. And they go, the government doesn't have control over the Waymo vehicle. Oh, who's feeding this stuff to the car? Oh, it's an algorithm. You don't understand computer chips and you don't understand science. So there's nobody behind it, right? Is that how we want to go in the future? We just want to rely on something, some machine over human beings. We're told that the machines are going to replace us. We're told machines are smarter than us, but we continue to allow machines to exist. And we continue to give more power to machines, especially machines which are controlled by big tech and the government, right? Pretty incredible. So Waymo also makes it very easy for law enforcement, it says, to simply press the help button and get connected immediately with a 24/7 service member that will be able to talk to them through moving the vehicle off the road, finding the insurance information, whatever information the officer needs for the investigation. I mean, unbelievable, right? So now we have cars there you can talk to customer support when they get pulled over by police officers. And we all know where this is headed. There aren't going to be police officers. The Masons will step aside, and this will all be run through AI. AI governance, everything will be under government control. And people out there will be told that it's not under government control, and they'll believe it. They'll be like, no, the government doesn't control that. It's just AI. And they don't know what that means, and they don't want you to know what it means. They just go, it's AI. And you're supposed to go, oh, it's AI. As if it's Roy Rogers, right? Who is AI? Oh, it's just AI. Oh, okay. So let's let him on the road. Yeah, let's let AI into bed with our wives and our husbands, right? That sounds like a great idea. Let's just continue as they tell us that AI eventually is going to replace humans and kill off humans. Sure, we need more of it, right? I thank everybody for listening to today's insanity. Hope you're all well. Unbelievable. God bless all of you as always and your families.